Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Not
It's
my
a
neighborhood, it's not.
It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. Oh, hey, yeah, hi. So if anyone is wondering why we're just slightly behind schedule, no. Well, actually, no. We can blame Canada.
I can deal with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Has a full lies.
We will blame Canada. So as people can tell, we are here. We are back. Yes, we took last weekend off from this show simply because, I needed it. But today, I did get caught up helping Reds with some verifications that he said would be quick. He lied. Oh, wait, I made Fohammer's ears bleed. Good! That means I'll have a leg up in 2 weeks, which, you know what? Might as well announce that topic now. So, the next non-Star Trek topic that will be taking place in 2 weeks is going to be quite the discussion. We are finally going to get to the ultimate answer of who is the true God Emperor. Is it Leto II? Or is it Big E from Warhammer? So, yeah, we're going to have some fun with that one. But in the meantime, we're going to have fun playing with a mouse. Well, wait.
I have that ready.
Wait, is it the mouse that is going to be getting the blame for this one? Or is it going to be the people who don't know how to fucking read?
It'll be a little bit of both, actually.
So
unfortunately,
do we want to just dive right into it? I mean, we can just do a swan dive right off the top of the Angel Falls and just see where we land.
I'm going for splat, but I think we could hit it.
Well, let's go ahead and take that jump off the cliff then. So, if you've been living under a rock lately, I'm kind of jealous because you've missed out on the stupidity. But at the same time, how dare you miss out on the stupidity? As for those who are blissfully unaware, the actress named Gina Carano, most recently known for portraying the character Cara Dune in the Mandalorian series, has
posted this to her Instagram.
She's not the most politically correct. She's definitely one of those, I'm gonna say what I want because screw you. She's a very strong-willed, independently thinking woman. Isn't that what...
Are you saying that she has her own agency?
A little bit, yeah. She's a...
You can't have that as a strong, independent woman.
Well...
Next thing you know, she's going to want to vote or something.
You can't have that.
But...
I mean, what is this?
I mean, all joking aside, one of the biggest things that Hollywood in general, and specifically Disney, has been pushing has been strong, independent female characters. Well, what...
Almost to a fault.
Yeah. Almost a bit too much they've been pushing it. But then as soon as they have one in their midst and they start not towing the company line, then it's an issue. Seems a bit hypocritical there. Now, for those who didn't see the Instagram post, because it was short-lived, because there was a problem with it, but we're going to dissect that a bit. So...
you want me to blow it up?
Yeah, go ahead and zoom in a bit, because the passage I am about to read is not inherently endorsed or specifically agreed upon by anyone on the panel unless they decide to say so themselves. The view being expressed here is the view that was expressed by Carano at one point on her own social media. As she has said, Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Sad emoji face. Then a quotation. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? End quotation mark. While I don't agree with the analogy, I agree with the question and the historical context.
Technically, you have the political thing there too, considering that if you look at a slightly later example in the USSR, you had exactly that.
Well,
And with the Stasi, etc., going on there as well, just rooting out those who are undesirable.
Well, sticking with the 1930s, 1940s era Germany, even the political party side is not wrong, because people were targeted in Germany not just because of their religious and ethnic background, but also because of their political leanings and ideologies. The Night of the Long Knives being one of the examples of people being targeted and literally killed in the streets because their views were counter to the people then in power of the German government. Quick poll. Anyone who's been paying attention. Which political party in the US has been getting favorable treatment on social media?
Oh, could it be the one that starts with a D?
I mean, the ones that took an L today?
I believe it would. Because if you are of the... Hey, we got a super chat from Rodent. We will read that in just a second. If you take a look at the behavior of people of the Democratic Party in the US, they seem to be able to get away with an awful lot on social media. But as soon as that D changes to an R, there's a lot more criticism and a lot less wiggle room that person is able to take part in. And that is a problem. And that is actually the problem that, from my understanding of what is actually been said by Gina Carano, that is what she is pointing at. That there is a disparity. There is a hypocrisy here. That's a problem.
And the issue of if someone with a D says something and they say something completely atrocious, that's just an individual. If someone with an R says something, that's the entire group. Everyone gets judged by one in the one case, and just that single person in the other.
Now, getting to that super chat for 20 US from Rodent. Keep this in your pocket for when it's relevant. If Mark Hamill started tweeting anti-Semitic content, would it impact the character of Luke? Okay, to address that directly. One, what the actor does away from the set, away from the show itself, away from events that are directly related to the project they are associated with for that character, to me, has zero effect on how I view that character. What is done in the of as and portraying that character is what is relevant to that character. What the actor does away from that is how I view the actor themselves. I can keep that barrier. That's how I utilize that barrier and the delineation between an actor and a character that they have portrayed. What about you other people on the panel?
Well,
You go first, Jay.
Okay, I was gonna say it. For me, again, it depends. Is it done like you were saying, Jared? If it's done away from the set, away from the IP and everything, no, it won't impact the character. Now, if they do it as the character or they're doing it in a promotional thing for the movie, like Brie Larson was doing for Captain Marvel, then yes, that does impact the way that I'm going to view the character, because you're showing to me that you can't separate your political ideology from your job.
Yeah, you can't separate your professional and personal sides of your life.
Yeah. I'm not so sure, though, because I see it more as this person is directly being, well, paid, essentially, by me watching them. If it's a person who does something that is just completely bonkers, you say that you have someone like Owen Benjamin, who turned flat earther and just completely batshit insane. I do not want to watch any of his material, either before or after that, due to the way that he has been acting. Simply because me giving him that attention, me giving him more views, changes his place in the algorithm. Me giving him more attention makes it so that he can reach more people. And if it's something that they do that's either harmful or that they're just a complete shit person, I do not want them to spread more.
I think you are jaded by our First Amendment.
Well, I think that that is a fair point on how the algorithm does come into play and that aspect of things. And there's a reason why there are actors like Chris Pratt, who you really don't see do anything on social media, and yet you find out that they are very conservative in their ideology and are very sympathetic to the core values that the Republican Party espouse to be about. Whether or not the Republican Party actually sticks with those values in application, that's a different topic for a different show at a different time. But with that being
said... do we get to touch on this topic again, Jared?
Oh, we're probably
CEO of Saber.
It's... You know, CEO Saber is kind of jumping the gun, because we were going to get to that relating to this. Because where Gina Carano posted what we read off, they have their own terms of service. If they want to interpret what was said as being anti-Semitic and do what they feel is necessary to control what they do and do not allow on their platform, that is entirely on Instagram. I don't have a problem with that.
It's yes, and where Disney got off at the time firing Gina could be attributed to what a lot of people would know as a morality clause in a contract. Whereas if you do something to harm the company or the company's image, you can be terminated. And
I agree with the application of morality clauses if you are a public figure and a potential public face of the company that you work for. I am an out in the wild representative of my own employer. I make sure to handle myself in such a way that when I am doing something that could even be closely connected to that employer, which very few people know who it is, and I plan on keeping it that way for a reason I'll get to momentarily. I make sure that my behavior is in such a way that my boss, my management, won't have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, during the interview process, I let him know that I do live shows on YouTube and I make my thoughts and views of a situation be known when asked about it, or when I decide to make it the primary talking point about one of these episodes. They're aware. We have had some discussions about some of the topics. You'd be surprised how many people in business are actually of similar minds when it comes to certain subjects, such as individual rights and freedoms, and how they can sometimes be in opposition to business practices.
You mean it's almost like you have a right to freedom of speech as long as you're not on company time or representing the company? Wow.
Or disparaging the company directly, or anything that can be traced to and cause harm to the company itself. Which is also why non-compete clauses are things in contracts as well.
Yep.
Do we, though, want to bring up the way that companies themselves act, and then the double standard of expecting their employer or employees to act in a way more outwards moral way, if you want to call it that?
Oh,
Because Star
Leon,
Wars did.
whatever do you mean?
Now, I mean, we have this trilogy here now, the so-called sequel trilogy.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Oh, but they had two characters there. One character that was completely useless to begin with, and kind of ended up being a Mary Sue that wasn't actually a strong character. And the other character who was supposed to be somewhat big, I think, that was then turned into just a joke. I'm not at all talking about, those are not the two characters I'm talking about, not whatsoever. And I'm not saying that they're used as token characters while then being somewhat hypocritical when it comes to how their employees in another show that actually turned out well are acting.
Oh, don't mince words. God damn you, OBS. Did you lose connection to YouTube?
Yes, it did. Thou art buffering.
You're not drinking enough Sam Adams, Jared.
I'm not drinking at all right now. Maybe that's the problem.
It seems to be working okay now, I think.
It looks like... Nope. And see, here's what's funny.
Oh, it's buffering again.
Yeah, here's what's really funny is OBS is saying encoder overloaded. There's barely anything going through the encoder. I fucking hate this bullshit, and you know, it's this time of year that's always the problem. And I think I know why.
It's the mouse fucking with the wires.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be the mouse. The mouse does not like being criticized. And you know what? I was tempted to pull an image of the mouse from South Park. But I didn't. I thought my own little usage of another image that I found would be a better one, but apparently not.
So, Dora's asking a question. If you want to take a stab at it, it looks like it's stopped buffering, maybe.
For the moment.
Yeah. So the question is, what if Disney fired her for other actors not wanting to work with her anymore?
then why the hell do they still have Amanda Heard as an employee?
Is Amanda Heard with Disney? I thought she was with Warner Brothers. I mean, they all kind of work in between different production companies, but usually when they're starring in a series, it's generally an exclusivity contract.
Yeah, Amanda Heard is part of the Pirates of the Caribbean project going forward.
Oh, that's
after
right.
they got rid of Johnny Depp.
Yeah. By the way, I heard Disney apologized to Johnny about everything.
Oh, yeah. A fat load of good that does.
Now, yeah. See, that's the thing, is you have a company that is rather hypocritical in their applications of certain things and treatment of particular groupings of people. See, now, at first, Leon, where I thought you were going was actually the... Fucking really? How the fuck can the encoding be overloaded when you haven't been putting out a goddamn fucking thing, you piece of fucking dog shit? Oh, is that what it is?
You were at least roboting Lester for a while.
Is that what it is? Do I have to berate you, OBS, to get you to fucking work and communicate with YouTube properly? Because right now, you're in the fucking green and you're actually putting shit out. Yeah, and then I shut up and you immediately go into fucking encoding overload. Must not punch the monitor, must not punch the monitor, must not throw the computer out the fucking window and watch it smash on the ground.
We don't need another hand simulator here.
Hey, that was just the mouse. Which is rather fitting saying it that way for today.
It seems to be working now.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least for the moment. So what was that you were trying to say there about the wonderful media corporation that is literally buying up every production company and project that they fecking can?
Well, part of that, and then the way that the company, they take some of their characters and they make them, well, they make the heroes quite literally into villains. I'm not going to say that was Captain Marvel that did that, but it was. They have characters like in Star Wars with the sequel trilogy. We have two token characters. You have Finn and you have Rey. And then they just make a mockery out of Finn, and Rey just stays as Rey. However, you then have something slightly newer, a breath of fresh air, than Mandalorian, which happens to be from a team that a certain Kathleen Kennedy does not like. And all of a sudden, you're starting to find issues with those characters, or rather the actors of those characters. There's issues here that we need to correct. We have a strong female character that's portrayed by an actress that used to be an MMA fighter. We can't have that anymore. She needs to go. How do we get her away? We'll find something which, if this had been any other character, if this had been on the other side, it wouldn't have been an issue, but now it is an issue. Poof, gone. Had this happened with Finn criticizing the way that the sequel trilogy treated him when he understood the criticism of it, he would have been kicked off because he was not kind towards Disney. With this now, though, Yeah, you find a reason to get rid of people.
That is actually a byproduct of being at will employment. Is you will have people lose their job for seemingly idiotic reasons. It's what really annoys me in all of it is the hypocrisy of it, in that, oh, here we have a person who was recorded as admitting to beating and injuring their spouse. But women can't be abusers. Women can't be the cause of domestic violence. Let's get rid of him and have her be in the franchise that, by all accounts, from an acting standpoint, he has maintained and made popular. Same company. Same company made that decision that has made this one, which actually an interesting rub to this particular one too. A little bit of info came out via the sources say, you motherfucker. Okay, that word shouldn't have gotten out on air. We'll see. The sources that regularly feed information to the YouTuber known as Doomcock, in the same day that he got the information that everyone else did, that Gina Carano was no longer going to be a part of the Star Wars universe as an actress, he then got information that was leaked prematurely because they have an investors meeting for Disney that is, if not taking place yesterday, is taking place in the next few days. And the investors don't like what Kathleen Kennedy and that group have been doing with the Disney projects and how they've been hemorrhaging money. So it very well could be that Disney executives weren't planning on making this announcement and decision concerning Gina until after that investors meeting. Well, now Gina and the investors have leverage for that to not be the case of her no longer being gone. Because which part of the Star Wars franchise in visual media have actually been keeping it afloat? Oh yeah, the work by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
You mean those people actually do understand Star Wars?
The people who are actually fans of Star Wars? Yeah, no. They don't know what they're doing.
I mean, it's not like Favreau hasn't been a part of a successful movie and other media platform franchise before either.
You mean like Iron Man?
Well, not just Iron Man, the entire MCU. And
Well, I know, but I was just referring to the fact that he also acted in the Iron Man segments.
yeah, he's been on screen. He's been both in front of and behind the camera for successful projects on many levels. It's almost like he knows what he's doing. It's almost like he knows how to both push a fan base into newer areas while not disrespecting or demeaning them in the process.
Oh, you mean that we're not allowed to demean the fans who obviously pay for the projects that we work on? What?
Yeah, it's kind of a bad idea to piss off your market share. I wonder, how could someone get to be convinced that that would be a good idea?
The same people that well, I'll just leave it as the same people who seem to think that history is malleable and can mean whatever you want it to mean. and not take into account the facts of the actual situation.
Well, that is actually quite a large group, because you have people all across the board who try to do that, who try to represent actual historical events in one light or another.
Oh, Jared, I'm trying to keep it purposely broad for a reason.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But let's dive a little bit more into it, because there are a number of people. As a matter of fact, a very loud voice has said that the comments that Gina Carano made were anti-Semitic.
Do I need to pull that back up so we
No.
can all read it again?
No, not yet.
Okay.
It's just, I'm curious as to how you guys read it and whether or not you saw anything actually anti-Semitic in there. Because I didn't, and if I'm wrong, I would love to know what I missed.
No, I don't think there's anything anti-Semitic in it. It's just explaining history, even though people don't like to hear this part of history. They don't want to. They don't want to see or make judgments on the fact that yes, it wasn't just the Nazi soldiers that were doing this. It was the actual German people, and there's a reason why in Germany you can't really talk about the Nazis that much unless you're doing it for academic purposes.
Or willing
And
to
even
spend
then
some time in a cell.
Yeah. Whether you're for or against it, it's.
Where it's also to the point where people do not want to know that they can be biased. They cannot be, well, the villains in the story, so to speak. It's way easier to think that this is just something where we are doing this because they deserve it. And what Gina Carano there brought up was that the way that the German government at the time managed to do it, they saw it as not just the Jews, but also the homosexuals, the blacks, the disabled, the political dissidents,
The gypsies.
Well, maybe those two. Yeah. The gypsies, all of those people, they deserved it. They did not have the right ideology. They weren't clean enough. They weren't the good guys, which is something that is so easy to do today by simply painting everyone with broad strokes, and then people will swallow it wholesale. And what Gina Carano brought up there is a historical fact. It is the way that they have done it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way pretty much that every country has done it when they have a group of people that they do not want to be around anymore. You demonize them. You make them less than human.
All right, let's see if that helps a little bit. But yeah, and that's the thing. In the chat, we've actually had a couple comments that are in line from Dora. Said it before, even Dutch civilians handed in Jews during the occupation. People were wrong, not anti-Semitic about stating the truth. And I'd have to agree there. Mm-hmm. Was Gina Carano correct in trying to make the parallel, trying to make the comparison that she did? No. I think it could have been stated much better and gotten the same point across. But was she wrong in the type of comparison she was making? No, and the people who cried out against her actually proved her point quite nicely.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember sharing this with you, Jared, and when we explained it to Gio, because we put it in the Kanar with Damar group chat, and he was like, "Who's this?" And then we explained the situation, what was going on. What was his response?
No, I don't have it open to quote it verbatim, but I know that his initial reaction was like in line with the people who were speaking against her. Oh yeah. Pardon my French, but yeah, she can fuck right off.
Yeah. Yep, and that's and that's just it. It's as you and I talked about it after the fact when we were planning this episode. It was not that he's thinking about she's being anti-Semitic or anything. He just doesn't care for the comparison, which is fair enough. But at the same time, when you look at how everybody else reacts to it, she proved her point that there is a bias out there. Whether we want to agree that it's as widespread or as impactful as some people are claiming, that can be argued and debated. I know CEO of Sable was talking about a study earlier, and I asked what study. If it's the one I think it is, there's a lot of bias to it. But if it's something different, I'd be glad to read it.
Oh. All right, Fred, I see what you say there. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, from Mute Donkey, it is easier to push blame on another group than deal with the problem directly. And that's part of what is going on. And that's actually how I understood what was actually being called out. Back in the 30s into the 40s era of Germany, the government, the primary political party, was actually pushing blame for the hardships the populace in totality was facing on a couple particular groups for their own means and benefits. They gave everyone an actual enemy to rally against that happened to be their own members of their own society and own citizenry. The comparison of the similar things happening today in U.S. politics is not incorrect to say that there are those pointing the finger and trying to put the blame on the opposing political party from both sides that the general idiotic populace is then latching onto and making decisions based off of that, ignoring the less than idyllic actions of their preferred political party, and instead demonizing the opponents simply because, well, I agree with them, they can do no wrong, look at them over there, we can't even talk to them. Sorry, that's not how it works. That's actually how you end up crippling a government and destroying a nation that was built on diversity and coming together and actually working out problems together instead of against each other. And yes, I recognize that the U.S. has had its own missteps and its own history, but learn from the past. Don't fecking repeat the past.
But why would we want to learn?
I would say that the main issue here, the thing that has taken it this far, has been people preaching tolerance. Not because tolerance in and of itself is something bad, but because people say, I tolerate them. I tolerate that they are there. Not, I accept that they're there, but I tolerate them. They are like a fly on the wall. They are like a shit stain that I can't be bothered to deal with. I just tolerate it. Because from there, from the mere, okay, I tolerate it, so easy to just say, I don't tolerate it afterwards.
Well, or you tolerated it because you had to. Yeah, it is a really dismissive way of looking at the issue when you actually use that type of language. You're not fostering an air. You're not fostering an area of actual cooperation with people you may or may not disagree with. You're just there because you have to be. It's very much a empty platitude lip service type of response. And
what people
go for it.
Go.
No, by all means, go ahead.
people now more. People do not want to be able to have a disagreement or even get to the point of, why do you think this? Why is it that you say the things that you do? People have become too uncomfortable with the fact that they might have to actually say something about why they think what they think. Instead of being able to say, okay, I think this, I think it because, and then being able to give a valid reason, or at least give any kind of reason that can then be discussed, people go, I think this, you can't change me. It's my life, YOLO, hashtag 420 blaze it swag, anything. People see it as, I have these opinions, I have these things that I think, and therefore no one can question me about it, no one can ask me about it. And if they try to even ask me about it, I'll just avoid them like the plague because they're just, hampering my vibes.
Yeah, and that is actually one thing, one facet of that video that Arnold Schwarzenegger posted a couple months ago that I actually agreed with.
Sword.
Yes, the sword analogy. Yes, metal tempers metal. If you want to better understand not just yourself, you need to understand your enemy. You need to actually have the discussions with people you don't agree with. But at the same time, he did go wrong in that mindset of being too rigid in your beliefs. He thought he portrayed it as that rigidity being a good thing. It's not. If you are too rigid in certain frameworks and certain ideologies you have, the only thing that's going to end up happening from there is a fracture, is a failure, is a complete failing and catastrophic outcome. A sword, like a good governance, needs a certain amount of flexibility to be able to handle the stress, the strain, and the changing tides of reality around it.
Yeah, that's also something where you need to know when you have to use the hard edge, and you need to know when you have to be able to just bend it a bit in order to get the job done. Sadly, people tend to see it as you need to blunt the edge, because if you go at it and you actually have a harsh attitude about it, you're going to hurt people. And you hurting maybe a fraction of the population is so much worse than you helping all the rest.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing as when you have bus lines. You can't always drag bus lines all over the place. You can, however, make sure that 80% of the population have ready access to buses. You can't say, oh, we can't do that. We can't give these 80% bus access, because what about those 20%?
Yeah, not everything is... You're not doing anyone any favors or helping them if you stick with an all or nothing mentality. Because there are so many nuances and so many situations where that all option, that 100% option, is not feasible. So to just abandon it because of that minority that would be unaffected by the change, well, now you are negatively affecting the majority of the people who would have benefited from it. That's a problem.
But we can't have a minority that's affected by it when the majority gets to profit from it, Jared. Come on now.
Individuals have responsibility. They have agency. They are able to make their own decisions. Every decision has a consequence, be it negative or positive. You cannot avoid the consequences of your actions in either direction. You also cannot skirt away from the responsibility that you are in some measure responsible for the situation that you are dealing with on a day-to-day basis or an ever-evolving basis, even within a single day, a month, a year, a decade. There's a personal
Circling back.
account. There's the personal accountability that everybody has, that every entity has. Every decision made can go in a myriad of manners, and the individual, the deciding group, whoever is responsible for making the decisions at those individual points, you are responsible for the outcome following those decisions. You cannot get away from it, and we have to stop letting people get away from their responsibilities like that.
Yep, and kind of circling back, you'll notice that Gina, whenever she gets called out by anybody to try and cancel her, she doesn't back down. She's like, prove me wrong in what I'm saying. And she's trying to hold not just herself accountable, but the other people that are calling for either her cancellation or whatever the going thing is. Like Fred, I think it's Fred Knotts has been posting about her. What was it? I saw it here. Where did it go? Somebody was I think it was Fred that was talking. Yeah, it was Fred. Her voter fraud and anti-mask stuff bothers me more, and that, I mean, like we discussed yesterday on my channel, you know, how much voter fraud, if we were to call the mismatched signatures if as being 100% fraudulent, was there in the state of Washington? Well, just barely over half of 1%.
Yeah,
You
minuscule in that aspect.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, though, Jared, do you remember when we started looking at this right after the claims started coming out, November last year?
Oh,
She made a post saying, we need to clean up the election process so we're not left feeling the way we do today. Put laws in place that protect us against voter fraud. Investigate every state, film the counting, flush out the fake votes, require ID, make voter fraudy, fix the system. That is being said to be a pro-Trump thing. Except I might be wrong in this, but I do not see anything partisan in that claim.
Well,
at all.
it's because he was challenged. The reason why they're doing it is because it's similar rhetoric to him saying that it was stolen, but she's not saying it directly the same way he is. She's conservative, and she definitely is of the mindset of getting as much money out of politics as anybody else. And I actually agree with the sentiment that, you know, we need to be more accountable. Now, does that mean, like Logical was saying, does that mean that we need to abandon the private balloting? No, there are ways that we can audit and check everything in fairly accurate timing if we just are willing to do it and willing to pay for it as taxpayers. You know, problem is are we going to allow that? Because, you know,
and that's the thing is, what her statement, when you actually look at what she said, just look at the statement that was made. There was no political affiliation made to it in either direction, unless you as the reader put that association there. And that, to me, is a huge problem. That we need to stop injecting our own emotional fucked up bias into every damn thing we read, and sometimes just read the statement for what it is. But when you add the context, if you see something that doesn't line up, then look into it more. Because guess what? There are a lot more people out there who will just simply say what they mean, and if you try to look further into it and try to twist it into something that they didn't actually say, you're the asshole, not them.
You know, I heard they have this thing on Reddit that's "Am I the asshole?" Do you think a lot of these people are in there and asking those questions?
Oh, I have my serious doubts. Because I think a lot of people who are of the mindset and the mentality to challenge people and then, or just see something like that and immediately run to daddy to try to get that person in trouble, they're the ones who don't want to know the answer if they're being the asshole or not, because, well, I'm doing it for the right reasons. So it doesn't
Oh, you
matter
mean
if
like
I'm
my
an
experience
asshole.
yesterday?
Oh,
You mean like my experience yesterday? I'll share that again on BTW, but that. And there's a part I left out just because of, you know, the company I work with, you know, the company I work for and stuff. But, you know.
yeah. Well, so here's the thing. So Dora brings up the only thing that could be partisan and politically based is the ID requirement. Here is my view on that. I have no political affiliation in either direction. I actually go as far to say that I hate both political parties. I do not trust any of those fuckers. I still think voter ID is not a problem because if you are of adult age in the United States, there is no viable excuse for why you do not have photo ID. Outright. I'm not talking driver's license. I'm just talking a simple state-issued photo ID. As a citizen of the country and the state that you're in, if you have financial hardships, there are programs to cover you. If you have transportation limitations, there are organizations and groups that will help you. They make themselves abundantly known in the lead up to elections. There is no excuse for someone to not have proper identification available to them. So for...
Where is that video? Oh, here we go.
Just a
4 years
question
ago.
regarding that. If you were to, okay, say that something happens, you're involved in an altercation, not as a suspect or anything, but they want to know exactly who the fuck you are, and you do not have an ID on you. What would the police in that case do?
They, depending on the situation, they will detain you until your identification could be discerned.
Which in that case, is that not quite as important as being able to change the actual outcome of an election?
Yeah, it very well... I'm not sure of the direct impact or not of what it would actually end up doing for an election. But everything that I have looked into on the subject actually comes down to that there is not the massive discrimination in requiring identification that certain parties keep trying to say that there is. Which, we could get into the psychology of that rhetoric. We really could.
I just posted a link in the chat, in the live chat here, tagging Dora for her to watch at her own perusal. But it's the Ami Horowitz video about "Are voter ID laws racist?" It's 4 years old, but it's still a great talking point. And Fred Knotts has got a good point here. Biggest issue with fair elections is gerrymandering of districts. Totally agree.
Yep, I agree that gerrymandering is an issue. And it's an issue that both parties have benefited from.
Have capitalized on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's the thing. Yes, it's an issue. Is it a Republican issue? No. It's a political issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, just think it was in 2018. You actually had the governor of Maryland, a Democrat, admit to using gerrymandering tactics for the benefit of the Democratic Party in his state.
Every state does it in their own way, because I mean, even Washington here, there's various ways of them gerrymandering the districts. Like my congressional district goes all the way up to Shelton, covers basically Olympia, Fort Lewis, and almost all of Thurston County, a little bit of Lewis County, a little bit of Mason County. But as soon as you get outside of the northern parts of the Shelton city limits, you're in a different congressional district, even though you're still technically in Shelton. It's amazing how, and it's because even though Shelton generally is more Republican as a city, or Mason County is more Republican as a county, Shelton can sometimes swing to Democrat when they want to. So.
Wait, you mean they're not entirely static?
No.
No, I think I broke my sonic screwdriver.
Aw.
It's not.
Have Furball fix it with his.
It's not latching shut. What's wrote no last name saying now? It just had to leave for a meeting. Have you touched on the cancel culture of Alex in The Expanse? We have not touched on that yet.
I didn't even hear about that.
I saw mention of it. I will admit that I haven't taken the time to look into that further, but it was mentioned. I saw it come up in relation to everything with Gina because people were wanting to compare the two. But again, I haven't looked enough into it to see if it is a fair and valid comparison between them. But it'd be interesting to see. Now, before he did mention that it's funny how the people who are decrying cancel culture are some of the people who are also advocating for canceling Disney Plus. Well, they're not saying to... here's part of the difference of that and why I don't agree with the comparison. Because when you are calling to cancel something, you want to get rid of it completely. People who go to the cancel culture type of rhetoric and actually wanting to cancel an individual, they never want that individual to work in a particular field or at all ever again.
Mm-hmm.
The call with Disney Plus is, if you want to get your message across to Disney, don't say it on social media. Hit them in the pocketbook.
Mm-hmm.
Boycott their subscription service.
The problem is a lot of these people who want to cancel Disney Plus don't actually subscribe to Disney Plus, or if they have access to it, it's not through their own personal account. Like, I don't pay for Disney Plus. I have friends that they give me access to Disney Plus because I give them access to my Netflix. A fair trade, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Rodent, that sounds like a very personal problem.
I just read that too.
And I agree with Fred Nuts that we do need a fair elections amendment. The problem is you'll never get Congress to pass something like that.
No, because they're the ones who are benefiting from the loopholes and the problems that are there. This is part of why I think there should be congressional term limits as well, not just presidential. I think congressional term limits are an issue as well. Do you really think that Nancy Pelosi has a gauge of what is actually going on with her constituents and the nation as a whole? I mean, she has been in federal elected office for almost as long as I have been alive.
Mm-hmm. And that's just it, is the career politicians, where they are, whether they go for a business degree or they go for a poli-sci degree and end up working as aides and then eventually becoming the politician themselves. It is not what the founding fathers wanted from elected officials.
No,
The elected officials were meant to be, okay, I serve, X number of terms because I'm trying to get something done through like a pet project, so to speak, for your district or whatever. And then once you accomplish that, hand it off to the next person behind you, or somebody else.
Well, and the other bit of it is federal service in Congress, or even as a president, was actually originally seen as a civic duty, as a sacrifice you are making for the better good of the country. You are going away from your private enterprise, your private business and homestead, and going to Washington to be the voice of the people that you represent.
Mm-hmm. And Rodent last name is giving us what I just found out about the Expanse issue. Basically, there's allegations of sexual harassment and assault levied against Kas Anvar, who plays Alex in The Expanse. As far as I know, as of the publishing of the article, which was 2 months ago, on December 3rd, it's just allegations at this point. But the fact that you would cancel somebody because of allegations is
a
stupid.
Really hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, like it would be one thing like if there was merit to the allegations. Like, sorry to spin it to politics in real life here, but the Brett Kavanaugh thing, whether you like him or hate him, the fact that you have somebody come out from the woodworks saying, I was raped or I was sexually assaulted by this guy back in the 80s. There was no police report. There's nothing going on. And you're trying to condemn the man now when he's already been vetted by the Senate before for a federal position on the judiciary. Oh, just drives me nuts. That type of cancellation,
Yeah, or I hate to bring it up, but with Kavanaugh, I mean, you have particular allegations that come up only when he's up for an election. Never actual prosecution, never actual investigation for criminal or legal liability.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tips your hand on what you're actually after at that point.
Exactly. And gotta love the partisan BS that is politics, and not just U.S. politics. It's politics everywhere.
There is one more thing, though, that I've noticed quite a massive trend in when it comes to who gets cancelled for what under what allegations. Because just talking about one of those things that Corona brought up, a certain name rhyming with Steen, who did perhaps not off himself, and the people have been found going to one of his island resorts.
Yeah.
Yet those kinds of people have gone there, are currently not being held on pause, being told that, okay, you went there. We're going to go through a full investigation to actually see what the fuck went on when you were there. Only some people. And most of the people who went there, as far as I know, were on the less critically examined side, so to speak.
Oh, you mean the side that was banging on the doors when somebody was getting sworn as justice a couple years ago that I brought up just a few minutes ago?
And they were banging something at least.
That's about all the banging they're ever going to get, but
Yeah. Well, and that's
all right, mute donkey. To answer it, I understand that, but at the same time, to try and say that I have friends that will vouch for me, like she was saying, and they all like, I don't know what you're talking about. That where I have issue with it with cancel culture. If it's yes, this happened, and then you have corroboration from people that it actually did happen, I would have taken the claims against him much more seriously.
Yeah, and that is actually exactly it. Is I'm saying that one, all reports should be taken with the same measure of seriousness at the beginning, and all of them should be investigated with proper veracity at the outset, and there should not be the stigma or anything against the person reporting it just because they reported it or any of the issues or circumstances going on. Because guess what? Human memory is fallible. And the problem that I have is the timing of when the subject keeps coming back up, the context around the allegations coming back up, and as Jay has already said, the claims of corroboration that have not come to fruition.
Yeah, so apparently it started buffering right as I was addressing Mute Donkey, I think.
Well, go ahead and try again.
Okay, so Mute Donkey again. I don't think that rape should not be reported, regardless of when they're reported. The problem that I have is when you say that you have, corroboration of the events, and then the people that are supposed to corroborate it are like, I don't know what you're talking about. That is, and you're using this as a political motivation. That's my issue with using rape in that case. Now, and Dora just brought up but first concern is that anybody is innocent until proven guilty. Yes.
That's why you investigate the claim. You don't make any determinations. You take the claim, you investigate it to get the evidence and the story as best as possible, and then submit it to the proper people who are of the proper positions to then determine further action and go from there. There is the legal process for a reason. It can be used quite effectively if you use it properly. Did you have something to add there, Leon?
Well, it really depends on not just how you use it, but how you back it up. Because something here that Round last time brought up is, well, are allegations evidence? Because if you have something like, okay, I claim that someone did something to me, I claim that someone assaulted me 14 years ago. I was at this and that location. I know that this person was in the area, but they have no way of actually proving that this was wrong. I can now show that, oh yeah, but I had fractures, I had broken teeth. I went to the dentist afterwards, but I was too afraid to press charges at the time. I was afraid no one would trust me. If I just say that, that's worth fuck all. If I allege something like, okay, he assaulted me 14 years ago, I can prove it. I have a recording of where it happened. I have several witnesses who are, well, viable. I have actually independent witnesses who did see this happen. I have pieces of his bones from his hands after he hit me that were dug out of my face. Those two are very different. What we see so much today, though, is that people don't actually take the legal system or don't use the legal system. What they do is they allege something afterwards, most of the time with no proper evidence. And they don't care about the legal system. The legal system is not really their issue. They're trying to get it done by the public.
Yep.
And-
It's the court of public opinion that they want to win over, and the problem is that we allow that as a society. The hashtag believe all women. I will believe them until something in the investigation contradicts what they're saying.
Well, and here's the difference. You can believe the story that someone says. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. You can... Reds and I were saying this at the time. We believe that... oh, God, I'll be honest, I can't remember her name right now. Ford.
What's her Ford? Yeah.
Yeah.
Blasey Ford.
Yeah, we believe that she was assaulted in the story that she gave. It rings that true to us that she was assaulted. But we were not willing to support punishment of Kavanaugh because there was nothing to point to guilt of Kavanaugh, and we are not the people to make that determination. Judge and jury are.
No, and one more thing, just to actually grab something that a certain person that a lot of people get annoyed by is saying, you can't be agnostic in the whole thing. You don't necessarily have to believe either side right away. You can take the information. If you hear one thing, you can just make a judgment based on that later on, once you hear the other side.
Yeah. And that's generally my position on a lot of things, is if someone brings something to me, doesn't matter what it is, I will take what is said on board. That does not mean I'm going to automatically or inherently make my decision based on that alone. But I'll take it on board. I mean, I do not reject information. I do not go against an evaluation of everything that's available. I don't always act. I do not act on it immediately unless what is being said is so egregious and what is being provided along with the claim is undeniable. If you're able to provide that, then you have a lot more credibility, and my next step is going to be different than normal. If you just bring something to me, I'm going to be like, okay, that's nice. What do you have to go with it? If you already have that to go with it, and you're like, hey, look at this. This is messed up. This is what happened. Yeah, you're giving more than just a claim. I think there's a difference between, right, and not quite. That wrote no last name is big right there. There is actually a difference between the actual assault power play type situation that happens and a less malicious event where there's major misunderstandings that still have a negative impact and outcome. When it comes to the visualization, the mental image that most people have for the R word, for an actual assault in that manner, is different than regret after the fact. I mean, there's also that gray area in between where one can become the other. Again, circumstances and contextual nuance are more numerous than can really be counted in situations like that, because I'm of the mind that you can go from consenting to non-consenting like that. There's no problem with changing your yes to a no at any point. And if that yes changes to a no, it does not matter who is on the other side of it. It doesn't matter at which point in the process you are. If that yes becomes a no, you stop.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to add in one extra part of that, though. During the actual happening. Because if it happens 24 hours afterwards, and you then decide that, no, that wasn't really consensual,
And
at that point, Go on.
I think that's what Rodent was going to. The post-act change of consent is where it's not exact. That's part of where it gets into the muddied and gray area. If you are in the act and the consent changes during the act, you stop or it is rape versus regret.
Yeah. We do have an issue there, though, with peer pressure, where you do have cases where women have been told by their friends, as in their girlfriends afterwards. Girlfriend? You know what I mean. Their female friends afterwards that, okay, that guy, do you really like him? I'm not so sure that I like him. He's just an asshole. And over time, they have been pressured into not so much just accepting that they slept with that guy, but taking on the views of the other women, or one or two of the other friends, who do not like the guy. And it has been used as a way to get back at guys where these women themselves do not like the guy. It's really important to see when and where this happens, just so you don't have an issue of someone who doesn't like a guy because, I don't know, he rejected her, he played her, he was just being an ass towards her, anything like that, and then she can poison the well, or poison the views of that guy by telling her girlfriend or telling her friend that that guy is an asshole, therefore what you did can't have been consensual sex.
Yeah. And following along that, I'm of the mind that if the accusations are made and are found to be baseless and malicious, then the person who made the malicious claim or the person responsible for the origination of said malicious claim should face some sort of ramification for that act. Like, you can't have baseless claims being thrown about that have serious repercussions if even just the claim itself is made.
Well, you can do it in the sense of, if you make a claim like that, you get 50 to 100% of the punishment that the rapist would have gotten had it been a correct claim, or had it been an actual true claim.
But here's the thing, and here's me playing my own devil's advocate off of that. If the punishment is that high, well, is seen as being overly harsh in a manner similar to that, would that not possibly lead to even less reporting based on the fear of it being deemed as a malicious report?
That, in that case, depends on how you actually portray it. Say, for example, do you remember Mattress Girl?
It was
the girl who claimed that she was raped, recorded a porno portraying how she was raped, and she was carrying a mattress around on campus.
Oh, yes.
As a kind of protest about all this shit.
I am
where it turned
unfamiliar
out
with
that
that
she was
one.
lying through her fucking ass about it.
I think I'm unfamiliar with that one.
I can send you a link afterwards if you want to. But with her, she was found to be lying about this. She did this as a publicity stunt. She did it for her own benefit. But the guy that she did this to, despite him being cleared, had his scholarship revoked. He got fucked over by the school, he is still branded as a rapist despite not having actually done anything like that. In
It's
those cases where you can tell that there is actual malicious intent, not just, okay, I reported him, I have nothing to back it up, but I'm going to try to go for it anyway. Because those cases do happen. If you have something that happens and a week afterwards, she can actually muster the courage, or he can muster the courage to report it, there might not be any kind of evidence left. Those are cases that do happen, but those do not show malicious intent. Unlike the cases of, well, Matterskull, where that is pure malicious intent, where you have the kinds of, oh, I want to get back at him, I want revenge, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that yeah, and that's where it gets into really getting people to wake up that while there are noticeable differences between the sexes, there are certain realms where one has more power and authority than they should over the other in circumstances. And that's where, if you truly want equality, if you truly are about the equality between everyone, that equality needs to go both ways.
Yeah, one more issue there, though. Matterskull was still lauded afterwards, after being found to have been lying, because at least she brought attention to it.
yeah, the whole mattress girl thing is
That is
leaves a bad
messed up.
taste. Yeah, it'll if you look into it, it'll leave a bad taste in your mouth. In it,
I'm getting that doubt of do I really want to look into it to make my own full decision, because it's not looking good. But I'm going to end up taking a look at it to make my own determination. But
I recommend that you also look at the second link.
yeah, some people might wonder why I advocate people to be really hesitant when it comes to intimate situations, and this is why.
Well, if you do want to get into intimate situations, remember the James Bond case, or James Bond way of making sure that you do not end up paying alimony or
Re-
child support.
Record everything.
Well, how many women do actually survive James Bond movies?
Oh. Oh.
Now, I'm not
Oh.
actually supporting that, but it's one of those things where today, either way that you want to be on it, or either side that you look at it, you have to be ready to, in a year, in 10 years, in fucking 50 years, be able to show that, okay, what happened here was consensual. What happened here wasn't something where someone was coerced. It wasn't that someone was taken advantage of. It wasn't something where one person blackmailed the other. That's kind of fucked up today.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just throw themselves out there, not thinking about it. And often those are the kinds of people who do not see the red flags when you have someone who is batshit insane. And that's on both sides.
Mm-hmm. So, $5 US from Rodent. Should a past transgression prevent someone from future work? Does a one-time mistake stain a lifetime or assume a pattern of behavior?
What kind of transgression?
Any.
well, take a look at Take a look at anybody who's had false rape allegations levied against them, like the guy in the mattress girl situation. That all it takes is for somebody to know who you are, and if you've been publicly ostracized because of it, there's still always going to be the doubt that, well, just because you were off free on this one doesn't mean you won't do it again. People will make that assumption, but the problem is it shouldn't prevent you from future work, but it could. It all depends on the person who's doing the hiring. You know?
And here's the other thing: was the transgression actually properly reported and adjudicated? Because if you actually did assault someone in any way, and your assault, the accusation of assault that was levied against you was true, fair, and accurate, and you were punished for it, there are certain avenues of work that you are going to be disqualified from. I do not see a true problem of that. Meaning, someone who diddles a kid and manages to survive their prison sentence, sorry, I don't want them working near kids anymore. Whether they're my kids or not.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's entirely understandable.
But that doesn't mean that the person is excluded from all types of work. And someone who is willing to give an ex-felon the opportunity to turn their life around should not be viewed in a negative light either. Because, again, the question came up a couple times. Did the person serve their time? If the person served their time and has actually shown and demonstrated through that service of their judgment against them that they have been remorseful and are on the road to recovery and as much redemption as is possible, we should not go against that. There are very, very select few instances where I would say someone is irredeemable. And generally those carry life sentences.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I look at it as if you look at the Duke lacrosse case, those men were accused of something horrible. They were acquitted, but if they were to go on into their business life or their professional life, and people are holding that against them, that's wrong. Now, if they were actually convicted, served their time, and they're trying to apply in positions that might be not best for them, given their history, I would totally understand why a business doesn't do that. I mean, I know of a personal situation that in my life here, of somebody who was caught with CP on their computer and served their time and has a job with a big company nationwide, actually worldwide, because they're willing to give him a chance to redeem himself. I'm okay with that. But I know there are plenty of people, if they found out about who he works for and everything, they would try to
Raise
get that company to fire him.
And that to me is where certain groups and certain people have different ethical barriers than others. And that is a growing problem, the disparity between where those barriers are. And an unwillingness to look at the circumstances of a situation. You can't just look at everything as black or white. You cannot be an extremist. Being an extremist is what gets you into the situation where you will find remarks in a post that do not have those remarks to begin with. And that is a you problem, not a problem with the person who posted it.
Which also leads into motivations. Since, well, you might recall, Jared, we watched a thing the other week, a bit of a sing-along about a man who stole a loaf of bread.
Yes. Wait, what? Oh.
I have to. I totally have to.
Yeah.
I'm a Mariners fan, but I grew up in the '90s with them. So when they were actually doing something decent for a little bit. But it's the Mets. No.
Going back, though, to motivations, etc. If you find out that someone is a murderer, you might find out that, okay, they killed someone 10 years ago. That sounds really fucking bad on the surface, but you don't actually know anything about
the
well,
circumstances.
what happened around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because say, for example, if something were to happen, say that someone threatens someone in my family, tried to rob them or mug them, whatever, and I ended up, giving them a kick, maybe one too much, and I get convicted of murder. That's something where the way that I've done that, I've done it in protection of my family. I haven't gone out just tried to find someone and then done a curb stomp on them. That's a completely different situation. Completely different situation entirely. And that's something where you really have to look at what happened with it.
I'm sure the wife did not approve that firing there, Burns.
Oh. Wow.
I have to go let out the dogs, so I'll be back in a bit.
All right.
Well, that along with getting molested by the boss, sometimes several times a day.
Some bosses are more hands-on than others.
Well, hands on, hands off, hands off, hands off, hands on, hands off, hands on, hands off. Well, something gets off in the end, at least.
Yeah, and see, this is how quickly topics can move, everyone, and
Which actually, I feel like just touching on this since it happens to be that day here. Do they still celebrate Valentine's in Star Trek?
That is a good question. I don't think there's been mention of it.
I can't remember seeing it.
They've celebrated relationships and other things, but more as a function of the actual more typical relationship milestones, anniversaries, and whatnot. I don't think of them actually making any mention directly to the typical day before half off candy day.
No, because just thinking about it, something struck me with that. And something that's quite maybe cynical of me. But
Mute Donkey might have the reason why it's not mentioned in Trek, because it should actually be Singles Awareness Day.
Nah, no one cares about the singles. Revolted. No, but one giant part of Valentine's happens to be the money-grabbing nature of it. How can you show your significant other that you care more than anyone else? You can buy these things. And in Star Trek, they just happen to not have that much of money, at least within the Federation.
Oh, Fred Knotts, you're right. Monday is half off chocolate day. Otherwise known as Deanna Troy's favorite day of the year. But yeah, it is interesting to think about the. It would make sense to show just how fiscally centric a couple holidays are, but one
Sorry.
but one has never been showed in Trek, Valentine's Day, whereas another one has actually made an appearance in Star Trek, Christmas. If you look at Christmas today, it is very much a consumerism type of holiday, much more than what it actually initially was founded off of. And yet, Christmas makes an appearance in Star Trek Generations. So, the heart of the holiday, the actual existential cause and reason behind the celebration, can still be there without the consumerism side of it.
Now that begs the question, what other holidays are still there in that case? Just looking at it, how many of these holidays are holidays that are
Religious in nature.
propped up? Not just religious in nature, but holidays that would otherwise be, passed by. Except the companies know that between this and this big holiday, we have this small thing where you can put out adverts. Say, well, not even holidays, but say Mother's Day and Father's Day, where companies will just throw out fucking adverts for, oh yeah, you can buy this. Buy your dad a racer. He loves racers. Or buy your mom a, well, most of the time I actually see clothes and perfume for some fucking reason. But shit like that.
Jewelry and perfume here in the US.
Yeah, with things like that, without being a driving force, what do they do instead? Do they even celebrate it anymore? Or was it lost in the Third World War?
Well, again, it actually, a lot of these holidays, when you have to look at it from the societal standpoint, and when you have a massive societal switch, only the holidays that actually carried enough reverence and importance are the ones that are carried over. So something like Christmas, an end of the year holiday of being with friends, family, and loved ones, something like that would survive. But also at the same time of getting rid of the nation states, well then Independence Day, Thanksgiving, things of that nature that are very specific to an individual country, those are gone and out the window. So what's left? Your universals, which would be what actually was the foundation of a holiday like Christmas. A celebration of the ending of one year and into the next. Preparation for rebirth. Something like the actual original celebration for Easter. Celebrating the spring and the coming of that rebirth and the regrowth of everything going forward. Something like that would stick around without the religious overtones. But at the same time, you then have certain cultures like the Japanese who were atypical in their religious aspects on how their holidays came about. So you could have those actually carry on throughout the culture of maintaining that ethnic identity of I'm from this region of the world where these legends are from. Actually makes you wonder how many of the Norse myths and celebrations would make a comeback then if enough people survived that had the knowledge of them.
I feel like not so many of the Norse, actually. I feel like in general, when you have these kinds of things, you will mostly have the ones that have a significant part of the the year cycle still. Because you have winter, or rather in winter you have Christmas, you have New Year's Day. As in, you have the winter solstice pretty much.
Yep.
Then you have midsummer, which is the summer solstice. Those will still be there just because, well, it's the longest day of the year in most places. You can actually spend so much more time outside without artificial light.
Mm-hmm. Like being outside with the kids playing and wondering why the kids are all getting cranky, and then you look at the clock and realize, holy shit, it's 10:30 at night.
Yep. But you have those things. I'm not actually sure. I do not know how much of Earth is in a solid condition or in a non-fucked up condition after World War III. Because you do have the regional things that you mentioned too, but here it's with crayfish when that kind of season is actually starting. You have places where you have, like you mentioned in Japan, where you have the cherry flowers. You have those seasonal things which will be somewhat similar every year. And I'm guessing that those will still be celebrated too. But it won't be something that's pushed by corporations.
No, it'd be the individuals, it'd be the culture.
Yeah. Although I don't think that they can replicate crayfish. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, Planet-born, they still have the actual organic foods and actual stock that way. It's just really murky about the meat.
Yeah.
Although, there are still butchers in the 24th century, because O'Brien, shortly after his marriage to Keiko, did mention that his mother used to cook actual haggis. Actual, genuine haggis. And Keiko was almost, not quite appalled, but thrown off that O'Brien's mother handled actual raw meat, not replicated.
I wonder if that's one of those things, though, depending on where you live.
It, again, cultural. That's why I think all of the surviving traditions are going to be purely cultural in basis and not corporate or religious in overtones. But actually, the Japanese festival that came to mind was actually one that I got to participate in the celebrations for one year. The celebration of the Iron Phallus. It's a fertility festival.
Close to Katoi or not Katoi, but not quite.
Nope. Well, there are a bunch of those there, but it was it was interesting. And you know what? If enough people want to know about it, I just might go dig up some pictures and do a little bit of a show and tell on VTW, if not this week, next week. But I'm only going to do it if you motherfuckers actually push me into actually talking about it further, because it was fascinating, to say the least.
Well, we all want cultural enrichment.
Oh, but here's the thing.
Enrich it more.
I am willing to guarantee that at least a third, if not half of the pictures that I have from going to that festival are not able to be shown on YouTube unless I censor them.
How much will you need to censor?
A good, sizable chunk on certain images. There's a wooden one, there's an iron one, there are candied ones, Yeah.
Can you just put those black bars over them?
I could, but it would, some are bigger than others. That would Mute Donkey. That would be the Festival of the Iron Phallus in Kawasaki. It's
I need.
Yeah, go ahead and look it up and then decide whether or not we talk about it further. But we are... Yeah. See, Donkey knows about it.
Makes sense that he would know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With that, we are going to bring this episode to a close. Hopefully there's something enough of it that's salvageable. I mean, OBS has been happy for the last bit. I really am thinking it's something ISP related. Fuck you, OBS. As soon as I give you praise, you start to try to take a shit. Oh, hell no. We are not playing that game tonight. And yeah, Donkey has it right. It would ruin the image if we were to censor him. But alright, we are going to bring this to a close. Jay is probably not back yet from walking the dogs, which might be a euphemism for something. We don't know anymore. But stay tuned. We are going to be live in just under a half hour. I'm going to go warm up something to munch on. Phrasing. Before we go back live, and hopefully that gives everything enough time to calm down and not be such a fucking shit show. Yeah, so it's been an interesting one. I expect some, if you disagree with us, you know what? No, especially if you disagree with us on how we have viewed any of the topics that aren't exactly sci-fi related, but kind of, sort of, not really, that came up during today's show, go ahead and leave a comment below. I won't say you're wrong. I won't mute your opinion. I won't censor the commentary that you make. But I'm willing to have the discussion. Are you? If you are, let's go ahead and see what comes of it. I love hearing differing opinions from different people. And with that...
And I'm back. Just in time to do the...
Just in time to let anyone know what you have going on before I hit the stop streaming button.
Nothing, but I have this.
Ring my bell to be a special subscriber.
And with that, everyone, we will see you shortly as we go over to...